behind the vision, we should clap our hands as he's getting in. Mr. MASIYIWA, please welcome on board. Please welcome on board. Makofi hayatoshi jamani. Tuongeze tena makofi. Tuongeze tena makofi. You may be seated as well. May I utilize this opportunity also to welcome Madam Irene to stay tuned, but also without further ado, now is a prime time to welcome Mr. Jumanne Mtambalike for the very precise introduction that we've been waiting. Karibu tafadhali Jumanne. Makofi kwake tafadhali.
Thank you so much. So, the last 20 minutes have been the most amazing 20 minutes of my life. Talking to Strive MASIYIWA. Can you imagine? I'm honored I've been given this opportunity. After working with startup for the past 5 years, after running Boone Innovation Hub, helping number of young entrepreneurs to build their businesses, and then I got a chance to meet my idol. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here to speak before Africa's most celebrated philanthropist, entrepreneur, and businessman. I'll say in that order because he's doing amazing work in terms of supporting the ecosystem in Africa, building young African entrepreneurs. It's great to see you all here. It reflects the kind of Africa we all want to see. The kind of Africa where young people are driven to create solutions, not young people who are sitting down to complain about things that are not happening. My name is Jumanne Mtambalike. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sahara Ventures. It's a group of companies. We run 2 companies, Sahara Sparks and Sahara Accelerator. Sahara Sparks is the largest innovation and tech entrepreneurship annual event happening in Tanzania, looking to link young, innovative Tanzanian entrepreneurs to global investors, the like of Mr. Strive MASIYIWA. Sahara Accelerator is a space which is linking local, regional, and global mentors to some of the most brilliant Tanzanian startups and gives them opportunity to scale to the next level. So getting back to the main business today, supposed to do an introductory talk. For those of you whom is the first time in Tanzania, Karibuni sana Dar es Salaam, which means welcome to Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam is considered to be the financial capital of Tanzania. Currently has around 4.1 million people. And by 2052, according to the Africa Development Bank, we'll have 21.4 million people living in this city. We'll be able to achieve what New York spent 100 years to achieve. In the same time span, they were able to raise 4 million people during that time, but Dar es Salaam will have 21 million people. So it tells you how much fast this city is growing. For those who are uncomfortable with numbers, it means almost 4 times. This creates opportunity, but also creates challenges. Some of the opportunities include, as much as we have inconvenience in this city, that create opportunity for companies such as Uber and moving to come to Dar es Salaam. But it's also an opportunity for companies such as Bajaji Salama, Twende, Faster, and the likes to come in. This creates an opportunity for you guys who are here to try to exploit opportunities that are happening in this city. As my old Kenyan friend used to say, this country has too many problems for you guys to die poor. You just have to fix one of problems that matter, and that can create an opportunity for you to become a very successful entrepreneur. I'll be speaking opportunities around two specific sectors because Mr. Strive was here for the GSMA events, all about connectivity and technology and the mobiles. Currently, Tanzania mobile penetration rate is at 83%. The government has invested over 30 billion Tanzanian shillings to improve rural telecom infrastructure. And Tanzania is among few places in the world where you can go to a village and you can be able to access 4G internet access. So what does this mean to young Tanzanian innovators? The infrastructure is already there. You need to come up with more innovation to build up on the infrastructure which is already existing. We need to see products such as Jamii Africa. We need to see products such as Twende. We need to see products such as Empower. We need to see more innovations around the mobile technology emerging out of this infrastructure because it's already there and it is existing. We used to complain that the private sectors are not playing their role, but that is not necessarily true now. We can see relationships that are being forged between large private sector with startup companies. Vodacom and Pepper, the relationship they had with Smart Codes, Edwin is here. Tigo Backup, the partnership between Tigo and Magilla Tech. Twende is a partnership between Tigo and a startup company from that Technohama Business Incubator. So opportunities are there. We just need to find a way to reach out to them. Since the government has been talking a lot about manufacturing and industrialization, I thought I should say something in that area also. So Tanzania has over 40 million acres of arable land. And only 33% of this land is cultivated compared to the 95% for Malawi and Rwanda. Countries such as Ghana, Uganda, and Ethiopia have exhausted almost 80% of their arable land, but we are still at 24 to 33% in terms of land utilization in agriculture. Annual Tanzania produce of fruits and vegetables is around 2.75 million tons. That is what we produce annually in terms of fruits and vegetables. 2.75 million tons. But out of this, just 4% of that is being locally processed. 96% of it is just a waste. Tanzania produced 2.6 million pieces of raw hides and skin from millions number of cattle that we have, and only 10% of that is being processed. You can complain and say the markets are not there, but as part of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, we have massive opportunity to do business in US and European Union. Foreign earnings from the horticulture and vegetables between 2014 and 2015, according to the Minister of Agriculture, as a country made 200 million earnings USD from the vegetable and fruit sector, but none of this money has been tapped into any startup company or any mid-income company coming from Tanzania. Opportunities are there. Opportunities are even there for innovative business model around IoT, drones, 3D printing, artificial intelligence. And young people just need to start to exploit these opportunities. Of course, with opportunities come challenges. First of all, I've been working for so long in a Tanzania entrepreneurial ecosystem. Of course, we have a broken entrepreneurial ecosystem. There's a very poor startup financing. We don't have angel investors and venture capitalists to invest in early stage companies. And sometimes even we don't have money for companies that are looking to scale up to the next level. We still need to do some work with our education system. We are still stuck in a second generation universities. whereby universities are just giving priority on academic and research. We need to move from academic research and incorporate academic research, entrepreneurship, and innovation as part of the curriculum, so that we can be able to generate graduates that can come and start to form ventures that can employ others. From the discussion I was having with Mr. Strive a few minutes ago, one of my key takeaways from that talk is that every generation has a battle to fight. And our battle is to be able to create new jobs for young Africans so that they can stop crossing to Europe. Another challenge is also around business registration. It just takes too much time to register business here. Issues around taxes. Startups are being taxed on their first years of operation, meaning that technically you're taxing the capital. So we need to find a way on how we can put proper systems and structures to support the growth of startups. Lastly, these are my closing words. Young people, the time is now. You need to see, but seeing is not enough. You need to act, but acting is not enough. You need to act differently, meaning that you need to act innovatively. As the Red Julius Kambarage Nyerere said, failure to make decision is itself a decision. And this is the right time for you to make decision. And those few words, I would like to welcome Mr. Strive. I'm honored to have you, sir.
More round big of applause to Mr. Jumanne Tafadhali. After that brief introduction of the overview and actually the representative from Tanzania, now allow to welcome on the stage Madam Irene Kiwia, who is the founder and CEO of Frontline Management, a public relation company, communication consulting firm, founded in 2016. She's gonna be our moderator tonight, and I'm gonna give you the rules of engagement on how we are going to engage ourselves on this discussion. But before I go further, for those who will love to utilize the Twitter platform and social media platform, our hashtag is Afripreneur. Afripreneur, from the word Africa and entrepreneur. So Afripreneur, that is the acronym that we're going to utilize. So if you hashtag that now, we're going to be viral, and everyone else will be benefited from here. And just for your information, we are live right now across the globe through Facebook. And shortly, I'm also going to share with you a free Wi-Fi for those ambao bando yetu imechacha, so to be more comfortable to continue utilizing the social media. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't have a deepest quest or the deepest understanding of who Mr. Strive is, allow me now, before I welcome the discussion to continue, to read his brief portfolio or profile so that we can keep in touch to know the status that we have this evening. Briefly, Mr. Strive MASIYIWA is the founder and executive chairman of Econet Group, a Pan-African telecommunications, media and technology company with operations and investments over 20 countries in the world. MASIYIWA serves on a number of international boards, including Unilever PLC, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Council of Foreign Relations, Global Advisory Board, the Africa Progress Panel, and the Hilton Foundation's Humanitarian Prize Jury. And in 2016, he joined an expert task force on the reforming of the African Union under the leadership of President Kagame. Mr. MASIYIWA also serves as the chairperson of Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, a position he took over after Kofi Annan's team. As a philanthropist, MASIYIWA is a member of the Giving Pledge, and his contribution to education, health, and development have widely been recognized. Mr. MASIYIWA and his wife financed the Higher Life Foundation, which has supported the education of 250,000 African orphans in 20 years. I think this deserves a big round of applause. The Family Foundation provides scholarship to over 40,000 African orphans every year. MASIYIWA has been selected twice, in 2014 and in 2017, this year, to Fortune magazine's list of the world's 50 greatest leaders of our time. Another big round of applause. Over the last years, MASIYIWA has devoted his time to mentoring the next generation of African entrepreneurs through his Facebook page, as you may all be aware, which has been growing fellowship of nearly 2.4 million young people across the continent. And Facebook has identified his platform as one of the most engaging by any other business leader in the world. Makofi tafadhali. Ladies and gentlemen, now is a prime time for us to elevate the sense of consciousness and now welcome Madam Irene Kiwia to conduct and to moderate the fireside chat with the one and the one only Strive MASIYIWA. Makofi kwao tafadhali.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you everybody for joining. I am so happy to see such a great turnout, and why not? We have Mr. MASIYIWA with us. I am so thrilled and honored to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you. Welcome to Tanzania.
Thank you. Karibu sana.
Oh, I should be telling you Karibu, but
I did well.
It's great that you already know Swahili.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of questions, and I will try and capture what I think and what we believe most youth are interested in. And the question on every youth's mind, every young entrepreneur's mind is, how did you get started? Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or was there an opportunity that came up and you had your aha moment and got into the entrepreneurship bandwagon?
Great. No, first of all, good evening, and it's such a privilege to be here. And thank you for coming. I'm looking forward to a conversation with you. I don't do Twitter, you know that. I do Facebook because we can walk together rather than you follow me. So I want us to follow the same format. I want to hear you, as many of you as we can after our fireside conversation. I may not be able to answer your specific question, but in every answer that I give, I want to answer you. Okay? So so I'm here to have this conversation with you. You know, my own entrepreneurship journey, I always say, began with my mother, because my mother ran her small business. She woke up extraordinary hours of the day, and she went about doing her business. And when I was home from school, I would work alongside her, listen to her ideas, but I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur myself. The whole idea was she would work hard, we would go to school, I would get a job and be a professional. And I was dutiful in that. I went to university, I studied engineering, I came back and I worked for the government in a government telephone company. And, you know, as I thought about my job every day, I felt disappointed at the end of every day. We were trying to provide telephone service to the people of Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe prided itself as having one of the best services. But here was the problem. It would take you an average of 14 years to get a telephone. And should we be proud of that? But it had twice the teledensity, as we call it, for the rest of Africa, which meant it was almost infinitely impossible to get a telephone line, say in Nigeria or Tanzania and so forth. And I thought this was patently wrong. And that got me really riled up. You know, that I spent so much time trying to do something which I knew could be done better. And so one day I quit my job. I was 26 years old. And I got home and I said to my mother, you know, I'm going to start a business. She said, you know, now that I think about it, I thought you were going to do that. And so she never had a problem with it, but everybody else in my family thought I should be locked up in an institution. How does a graduate quit? Maybe he's a crook. But that's how I started.
Very interesting that your childhood experience got you started. You mentioned something at the beginning of your introduction, Mr. MASIYIWA. You mentioned that you are very strong and passionate on Facebook, and you have one of the most followership on Facebook, more so than even Bill Gates. So before I ask you why do you think that is the case, I want to touch point on something you mentioned, which is you've been telling your followers on Facebook that you want them to walk alongside you and not to follow you. Can you expound more on that? And if you have any example of how that has happened so far?
Well, as you know, Facebook have a tool where they measure not so much the number of followers, but the extent of the engagement by the followers. And you know that our platform, yours, mine, platform, because it's our platform, has 5 times the level of engagement of any other business person. Which means you guys spend more time engaged and studying and sharing and debating amongst yourself, way beyond me, the issues which I try to engage you with. And I think the real reason is this. Africa, my call has been a very simple call. Entrepreneurship at its greatest is when you reach out for a human need and seek to solve it. Africa is a place of extraordinary needs. And what this is showing is the generation of young people in Africa wants to solve these needs. We want to solve the problems before. We are taking this stuff seriously. We're not chasing after a celebrity. You're out to engage with your friends to find solutions. And that, for my generation, is a very humbling thought.
And why do you think you have such a great followership?
Well, you ask them. I believe it's because what I try to talk about, for a start, believe you me, I have a principle in life which was taught to me by an old man from Uganda when I was a young entrepreneur. And he said, when it's important, find the time. When it's extremely important, make the time. I make the time to actually read your comments. I find time, I go through the comments. It's not done by a third party. I go through the comments. And I reply myself. Okay? Now, I could hire half a dozen guys to do it for me. But no, it's too important. I engage. Okay? So when you see those responses, and I take your comment, and I pick the comments which I know resonate to the theme that someone has picked up. And I know that even if I don't answer 5,000 comments that come through on a post, that you all realize why I picked the questions that I did. That's why I always say, put your name on every comment that I make to you. So, and I think that is what is enjoying the engagement, because we're having a conversation.
Mr. Masiyiwa, you talk about mentorship a lot. And we have seen you engage in mentorship through your Facebook page, through your philanthropic work, and even here, you're here in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, at a youth town hall mentoring. So how important is it to mentor the youth of Africa in entrepreneurship?
It's extremely important because we haven't been this way before. There was a famous biblical statement by Joshua saying to the people of Israel, now pay attention because we haven't been this way before. See, if we were in America, they have built companies for 100 years. So they have a roadmap. We don't have that many entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, that have built companies that cross borders. So who's going to tell you? See, I debated, do I write a book? But then I looked at the age demographics, and I realized social media is a powerful platform. I would love to be able to have 10 people follow me every day, but it's not going to work. But this gives us at least an ability to say, how can I mentor in this virtual world? And I thought, well, let me just share, the things that go on a day-to-day basis, hoping that some of you will pick up these things and build the next Alibaba. Because there is an African Alibaba coming. Oh yes, there will be African Googles. Believe you me, it's going to happen. And you know what? The guys who are going to build those companies are on my platform right now.
I will highlight something you said, we have never been this way before. We need to pay attention. I want to link it to something that you're often quoted saying, mindset. It does not cost anything to change your mindset. What do you think is the right mindset for an African entrepreneur or an African youth, for that matter, when it comes to progress and development?
Well, look, we're a continent of 54 countries. And in every single country, the issues are going to be different. The challenges are going to be different. On our platform, we have friends from every single African country. We see the statistics from Facebook. Actually, sometimes I'm amazed by where the people are coming from. So how do we, I look for the key principles that will be the same irrespective of where you are. And let me tell you, finding capital, it's going to be the same wherever you are. The young African entrepreneur in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, in Dar es Salaam, they are all going to be faced with the issue of capital. Okay? But it's a skill. Take it from me, it's actually just a skill. And it can be learned, and it can be practiced. And you're going to have to do it over and over and over again. And so when I share that as a mindset, I remember walking into my bank manager's office and saying to her, you know, I have a payroll. I must pay my workers today. Can you lend me some money? She said, sure, you know, Gardini was here and he had a payroll problem. Now, Gardini was the biggest constructor in the country. I said, he couldn't pay his payroll? She said, of course. I said, well, that's okay then. Because my mindset suddenly shifted. I said, oh, you mean when you get big, you still have this kind of problem? She said, of course you can have this kind of problem. So I'm trying to get you to see that it's not about being big, but these are challenges that you will continue to face, so expect obstacles, expect challenges. You will succeed sometimes and you'll fail sometimes. Life doesn't end there.
And now the next question is something that I've had so many people ask, and that is, what are the opportunities in entrepreneurship for the continent in the next 10 years? What sectors? What are the places to invest in? What should the young people look for when they're looking for business investment portfolios?
The opportunities are the needs. The question should be framed, what are the needs? What are the needs? Because if we reach for the needs and not for the money will take care of itself. Bill Gates didn't get up and say, I want to be a billionaire. He saw a need. He's my generation, and I remember the battle we were having on software. How were we going to get computing to the masses? When I went to engineering school, only engineers could be allowed into the computer room of a university because every one of you was considered you break it. You know, but today he attacked the need. If you attack, so the opportunities, it's not a sector thing. The greatest opportunity is when you respond to a need, leveraging on your skill and know-how. And stay the course in that area. Bill Gates didn't go to build railroad. He could afford it, right? He stayed in software. Steve Jobs stayed in computers. Each sector is as big as each sector. If you are into agriculture, it's as great an opportunity as telecommunications. If we say, which is the bigger business? Should we be in telecommunications or should we be in supermarkets? Which is bigger? Well, Walmart is the world's biggest company by sales, and it's a supermarket. Isn't it? Does it mean I should be in social media? No, not so. I'm a telecoms guy. I used to call myself a pod, plain old telephone engineer. Okay? Because that's what I do. But because I do it every day, if you try and come in, I'll eat your lunch. Okay? So, that's the best way to approach it.
when you put it like that, and we're to look around us, we are surrounded by needs, right? So let's get cracking. Well, last year you wrote a series on in your Facebook page called Eagle in the Storm. And that was about how eagles actually hunt during storms, how they don't just hunker down in a tree and wait for the storm to pass. So in your journey, what would you say was your storm moment, and how did you navigate from it, and what were the key lessons from that storm?
So first of all, when I wrote the Eagle in a Storm series, I was also warning you about the storm, that Africa was about to go into a period of storms. Okay? I was looking at the numbers. I was looking at Nigeria's numbers. I was looking at South Africa's numbers. Tanzania's growth rate is down. Okay? So I was reminding you as an entrepreneur that as hard as it is, you're heading into a period of storms. Okay? I see this period, it's a period also of correction. Because sometimes when you've had a period of dramatic growth, take Tanzania, you've been amongst the world's top 15 growth economies for a decade or so. Okay? But there are storm clouds. Some of them are global, some of them are national. Okay? We see in economies, we get these storm clouds. The farmer looks up and he says, oh my goodness, we're going to have a drought, right? Or it's not going to rain. The same, you should be able as an entrepreneur to see the same, to see the storm clouds and to respond. But I also wanted to remind you that the entrepreneur is like a soldier. We fight in the conditions, not the conditions. A soldier doesn't wake up and say, goodness, it's raining. I'm not fighting today, Captain. You fight. You take the conditions that you are dealing with. The eagle is an incredible bird because it's so tuned to fighting, to hunting in the storm. It's the only bird out there in the storm. And it has found a way to leverage that position. So in this situation, like in all these kind of situations, some of the greatest companies in the world, do you know when they emerged? World War II. Biggest storm. Right? Big storms like a war. Well, guess what? Somebody is going to look at that situation and see an opportunity. So don't take fright because you're seeing some storm clouds or there is a storm. Go out and hunt during that period.
Mr. MASIYIWA, you are a true visionary, and for those who have followed your or have read about your journey, one thing stands out, and that is the things that you did at the time that you did them did not make sense then. It's almost like you can see the future. You can predict things. You know, I've read somewhere people wondering, are you a prophet? And on the same note, I read somewhere when you were starting your telecom company, when you wanted to start your telecom business, you were turned away because they said the continent was not ready for such. So based on all that, what do you think are the most important skills for the youth and for entrepreneurs that will carry them through decades from now?
Yeah, I had some tough times. Oh, shoot. Nigeria was tough, you know. Learned a lot of things there. But you know, you've got to take a perspective. See, I would say, you know, that was some good school fees. Now I got a diploma. What should I use it for? So I never get flustered, because I remember one time I was really flustered. And a friend walked in and said, have you ever been around Parliament Square in London? And there are all those statues. And I said, yes. And she said, you know, funny, isn't it? Each of those people had a critic, but there isn't a statue of the critic. There are no statues of those who will oppose or resist what you've got to do. Okay? What is important is you got to know the difference between being resilient and being stubborn. I'm not stubborn, but I'm resilient. Stubborn people are not good because they become dogmatic and blinkered. Because there are times I try to do something and I say, this doesn't work. You've got to be able to do that too. And just quietly tiptoe away. But often you will see, as an entrepreneur, you are going to see something before anybody does. I don't know if you've been following my new series on the bandwagon. Yeah. Don't wait until the whole bandwagon is going in front of you and you say, there's an opportunity. It's too late. Okay. You've got to be at the front of the train. Okay. And that's what marks you as an entrepreneur, because the way it works is you have to see. You absolutely have to see, and the seeing is not these eyes. It's seeing like an entrepreneur. And let me tell you, the entrepreneur is not born. He's trained. If some of you think you're born, no, it's not true. You're trained. You train yourself. You train yourself to see and to look at things in a particular way. Sometimes I go into a coffee bar with my kids, and I say to them, now this is a business, you know. And they say, really? I said, yes, it's not just a place to drink coffee, it's a business. Now, I want you to look around this business before I leave this place. Tell me how much money they make. Do you do that? When you go on Facebook, it's a business. How do they make their money? WhatsApp, you use it. It's a business. How do they make their money? You train yourself. You just keep training yourself to see things in a particular way. And after a while, it just becomes your way of thinking. Okay? They're all businesses. I love you for being my consumer, but we're not in a consumer discussion. We're in an entrepreneur's discussion. Okay? And it doesn't have to be profit entrepreneurs. You can be a social entrepreneur. There are a lot of social entrepreneurs. In fact, we find sometimes that the biggest things we do on Facebook is when I talk about social entrepreneurs. That's when we get the biggest responses. So a lot of you are trying to solve social problems in a sustainable way, so that we're not relying on donors to do things that we want to do in our own home. Okay? Let's go on solving. So this is what I mean about the mindset and the training. It's a consciousness. You just keep working away at it. How do these guys make money? How do they sustain this? Is this going to be sustainable? Just keep asking yourself that question every day, whatever it is you're doing, and before long, you only need to talk to me for 5 minutes, by the way. I can work out what you do, how much money you make, and if you're going to be there in 6 months.
Wow. I will need feedback on that. Africa is a young continent, and its strength lies in its people, the youth. And the youth of Africa are the continent's asset. So what do you think key stakeholders should do now so that the youth remain to be an asset and not become a liability?
You know, I used to have a memento I used to write in my office. And it used to say, the wealth of Africa is in the minds of its people, not in the ground. That's one of the biggest mindsets we need to break. The greatest wealth of this continent is in the minds of its people. That is the greatest potential we have. We have a continent with an average age of 19. That's right. 60% of this continent, would you believe, are under the age of 30. Many of them weren't even born when Mandela left prison. Many of them don't know much about Julius Nyerere, the great man. It's in the books now. At least I had the privilege of knowing him. So this is the continent we're in. It's a continent of young people. Now, is that a liability or is it a great opportunity? I'm on the great opportunity side. But we have some extraordinary challenges, friends. Every week, 500 people are drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. They're African. The vast majority of those people are Africans. And before they ever got to the Mediterranean Sea, many of them had crossed the Sahara. The Sahara is littered with bodies. 500 people, young people, going to Europe to look for jobs. Who is going to solve this problem? We are. We, the entrepreneurs of Africa, we have to create the jobs and the opportunities. At least let them be at the border of Tanzania, not on the borders of the Sahara. Let us fight to say, why are they trying to get into Tanzania? To say, oh, because the jobs are in Tanzania. Then you will have done what Julius Nyerere did for the rest of this continent. So we have an urgency. And that's why I'm here. That's why I make the time. The greatest challenge for us is, how do we create jobs? How do we create opportunities? Because, yes, we can talk about entrepreneurship, but not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur. Because that is not realistic either. Otherwise, then who would work for who? So we need to have entrepreneurship, but we also need to do skills training. We have to skill up the continent. Because let me tell you, one of the greatest trends we face is the fact that a lot of jobs are also going to disappear with the new technologies that are driving through. They will take our jobs. Now, should we be afraid? No, we will not be afraid. We will generate the global Googles of Africa, but they will not go under names like Google. They will come from Africa. They will have names from our languages, from our continent. That's why I chose Kwese.
Mr. MASIYIWA, you have written before that your words are your brand. What do you mean by that?
Wow. I wrote that?
Yes.
You know, I remember that. You know, we live in a time when everything you say will soon be a record. Isn't that extraordinary? Everything you say. When you write on Facebook, WhatsApp, when you write on LinkedIn,
Today, let me tell you, in some of the biggest companies in the world, you apply for a job. They say, can we have access to your social media footprint? So that they can learn about you. So now is the time to practice being careful with what you say. You're either going to succeed or fail in future based on what you said or didn't say. May sound biblical to some, but your words matter. The words reflect the true character of the person. They say that you are really who you are when you are speaking, thinking there's no one listening. Okay? So we got to be careful with our words. That's why I say your words are your brand. If you want to know who you are, watch what you're saying, how you're saying it. You can have an argument, but do you have to pile insults on the other person before your point goes across? Not necessarily so. So this is what I meant by your word is your brand.
What words, now that we're talking about words, what words do you live by?
Well, you know, I am a very spiritual person, so I very much spend a tremendous amount of time in prayer and meditation. But you know, at the end of the day, the most important words we can have is to love our neighbor, which means we have to be tolerant. Your neighbor doesn't have to look or think or pray as you do. Yes, including pray as you do. Okay? Let God sort that out. But let's be tolerant towards one another. We live in a time of extreme connectivity. And yet part of the danger we have, particularly with social media, is it drives us to our likes, which makes us never hear what we don't like. Now you can walk into a shop and because you bought something last week, the supermarket is pushing it to you because social media cookies are following you around. Okay? But it means we have to force ourselves to listen to people who we do not necessarily agree with, and to respect what they do and where they come from. It includes race, it includes tribe, all these issues, because that is your neighbor. So that's what I want to leave you at. Let us develop a tolerant continent. Tolerant to differences, tolerant to even things you don't agree with. Just respect it and give room to your neighbor.
Thank you so much. We are live on Mr. MASIYIWA's Facebook. So for those that are watching us online, join in the conversation via hashtag Afripreneur. I will now pass the mic to our host, Mr. Anthony, so that he can take questions from the crowd. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana. Naomba tupige makofi kwanza the audience. Mr. Strive and Irene, job well done. And I believe that we have now the deepest understanding of the whole issue. And I think some of your questions have been answered, but we'll continue giving you opportunity to ask more questions. Now, there's some ground rules that we need to observe. Please, the number one rule, please keep it straight to the youth and entrepreneurship, not beyond that, okay? Not something that is not relevant to our topic. And secondly, we would love to favor the youth more. So now there's the biggest debate, who is the youth? But I think we all understand. Especially in Dar es Salaam, they say all the youth, all the people in Dar es Salaam are the youngest. Thirdly, make sure that you are brief. Be very brief. The maximum is 30 seconds so that you can be straightforward to your question and pay attention to the question that has been asked so that you don't repeat the same question. Final, we have the free Wi-Fi this evening provided by Raha. So if you go to Wi-Fi spot there, you'll get the Raha spot. Naomba kwanza tuwapigie makofi Raha, maana some people were afraid of the bundles and everything. Today we have unlimited bundle. So you can go and please make sure that you use the hashtag that we've just given you, Afripreneur. That's our hashtag on Facebook and also on Twitter. So make sure that you utilize that. Okay, now is it time for us to have the questions, and I think we'll zingatia terms and conditions. All right. We'll start one here, the other one there, and then we'll go straight forward. Ladies first, right?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. My name is Beatrice Ndongo. I am a media owner. I'm a Kenyan. I own a TV station in Kenya, and I'm soon to launch a radio station in Tanzania. Well, my question to you is, I've been following you for quite a long time, and I was part of Questa team when it was started. My question is, sometimes as entrepreneurs, as young people, there's a point it comes where you feel like you want to give up, yet you have so many people looking up to you, like you're a role model. So my question is, what do you do when you want to give up, or when you feel like the things are not going as you want?
So we're going to take more 3 questions. I promised this row also. How do I reach that middle sentence? Okay. The gentleman over there.
Good evening. My name is Dos Ntukamazina, the director of Island East Africa Limited, the largest provider of online learning materials. So my question is, as an entrepreneur, when you have the passion and you've started what you've started, along the way, sometimes when things are very tough, like she said, you get that feel of trying to divert to something else, which might kind of take you away from your dream. But there are bills to pay, and sometimes, there's that pressure. So you want to do something else maybe that can give you additional income. So how do you kind of focus, stay in the cause?
Okay, the final one? 3, okay. Okay. Okay, this side, and then we'll go starting from the other side again. Wacha tukwende kule nyuma pia. Sija kasema disadvantage of staying at the back. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Felix, a HR practitioner. My question is, how do you manage a time by using social media and doing all activities you are doing as an entrepreneur? Sorry, for the second question is, about 80% of entrepreneurship or companies starting die before 5 years. How do you go about preventing those starting companies from dying? Thank you.
Over to you, Erin.
Can you hear me? Good. When I wanted to quit, somebody once asked me that question. When we were fighting the big legal battles in Zimbabwe, someone asked me the question, did you ever think of quitting? I said, yes. They said, what happened? I said, my wife said she wanted to quit. So what happened? I said, she changed her mind. So I carried on. So it's important to have friends and partners around you that believe in what you're doing. Reach out for those people, because it's going to be lonely, it's going to be tough. I make a joke of the fact that my wife was the one, but you got to have real friends and partners out there, okay? And it's also important to create, that's why it's important to create networks of entrepreneurs. You know, you guys, I wish I was your age. The kind of technology you have. Here we are in a conversation of Africans reaching out across Africa, talking to each other. And sometimes I marvel when I see a comment and I see a string of comments going on in a little group of people around something, sometimes having an argument about what I meant, and I keep quiet. Believe you me, that excites me. You got to build your own networks of entrepreneurs. You got to be talking to each other. You got to know what others are going through. You see, these associations you see, Tanzania Chamber of Commerce, or, you know, Zimbabwe Trade, you know what? They were started by entrepreneurs just like you when they were young. They didn't come out of Noah's Ark, so make your own, okay? Build your own networks where you strengthen each other, where you reinforce each other, where you're exchanging ideas with peer groups. Because sometimes it's one thing to know what Dangote does, but it may be more relevant to know what your neighbor did who's in exactly the same situation as yourself. Okay? So build these networks. I hope that some of you will build networks around in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, wherever you are, in local communities around some of the issues I discussed. Because those will take you through some really difficult patches. I hope that kind of touches on. I want to go to the idea there about 80% of businesses die that are started. Yeah, that's a global statistic almost. So let's not worry ourselves about it. Go start another thing, okay? Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid of fail. There are no jails anymore for people who failed and went into bankruptcy, you know. It used to be like that in the 18th century in England. You went to jail if you went bankrupt. Now you get an award. Okay? So don't be afraid of that. What is important? For me, Africa's challenge is not entrepreneurship. You want to see entrepreneurship? Go to our markets. That's entrepreneurship. Our informal sector, that's entrepreneurship. For me, the challenge for us is how do we scale to build bigger businesses? Okay? How do we scale to build our own big companies, our own African companies, more and more Dangotes and so forth? Okay? And I'm about imparting the skills that take you there. Because I think that's where we've kind of missed the trick for you. Showing you some of the pitfalls of growth. How do you build up, scale up, the challenges? How do you hire other people? How do you, I remember I needed I'll give you a story. I had needed an engineer in my business. And so I called this guy up and I said, if you take this job, I'll give you a fantastic car. He said, really? I said, yeah. And I gave him the keys to my car. I said, that's your car now. He said, how will you go about it? I said, don't worry about me. And he had the best car at the business. My car. Okay, are you prepared to do that? You have to be prepared to do that and more. Sometimes you give them stock. Sometimes, these are the things that we haven't talked about in sharing to the next generation that we as your senior brothers, as they say in Nigeria, will have to do more and more so that it's easier for you to scale up in your businesses.
Question. Sorry. There was another question about how do you balance the time between your own activities, business activities, with the social media engagement?
Sure, no, I heard that one. Like I said earlier, I distinguish between what I make time for and what I find time for. You will never, there has to be a total discipline of time. And some of it mean you shake off certain cultural habits and traditions that you may take on that may not really have any real foundation. Okay? I'm a stickler over management of time. I came into the room late, but I was here on time. I just needed you to settle down. Okay? Don't be late. So it's just about how you manage your time, how you delegate to others, and how you prioritize. So that's how we do it.
Asante sana. So we're going to take another. Now, in order for us to be effective in logistics, we'll be handling this side for the 3 questions, and then this side and the other side. Okay. Let me go back, and then I'll come forth. Don't worry, brother. I'll be here right now. Let's give a lady first.
Thank you so much. My name is Hyacinta Barthelmon Tuyeko. I'm the founder and the CEO of Kasole Secrets. We own Glory Sanitary Napkins, but we also run the menstrual hygiene campaign in the country. My question is, as a young entrepreneur, sometimes you just find yourself very confused because there's so many people around who want to partner with you. And I really don't know when is the right time to accept these kind of invitations. And also, what are the key things that I need to consider before I jump into those kind of invitations? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Brother Strive. You have actually answered my long-standing question when you gave the example of giving your car to your engineer. Thank you so much for that. Well, my name is James. I'm a business speaker and entrepreneur. The question I have is, when I was in Kampala, Uganda, like 3 months ago, I found out that you bought a TV station owned by Gordon Wavamuno. And then I started thinking, how are you able to spot out really good opportunities? Do you have teams of people working in every country? Or do you deploy when you realize that there's an opportunity in a certain nation? I mean, how are you able to grab these opportunities and build a massive team around them and then scale them up and, to a world-class level? Thank you.
Can I take these 2 questions? Partnership. Now, this is a big, big subject. I don't know whether I've ever really touched it. But it's going to be, for you as an entrepreneur, as a modern entrepreneur, one of the things that you have to take as a given. Businesses, large businesses, which is what you guys are about. You are about building the continent's next large businesses. Businesses that will be so large, that will be household names. That's what I'm interested in building from you guys. So, and you're not going to do it alone. You're going to have to do it with partners. There will be capital partners, people who you go to. Those Ubers and things that you are seeing, the Microsofts, they've been built by partners. You've got to have capital partners. You're going to have technical partners. You're going to have supply partners, strategic partners. So what you need to begin to study now, even before you ever face that, is what skills do I need to get partners, to get the right partners? Let me share a secret with you. 90% of the problems I ever had in business had nothing to do with governments, had nothing to do with regulators. It had to do with partners. And 90% of my success in business had to do with partners. How do you choose the right partner? Finally, let me give you the secret for it. It's like a marriage. If you're transactional, you'll have a problem. Okay? My brother there with his question, remind me again. James, yes. Remind me, what was the issue, James? Quick.
About acquiring a TV station, one of the major TV stations in Uganda.
I got it. I remember. You know, our organization's been around for 30 years. In fact, it's 31 years this year. So we have a lot of people, 5,000 plus, working on this continent. Professionals in their disciplines, in their work. I visited this company, Raha, today. Okay? It's owned by one of our companies. I never got involved until I had to sign off for the check that bought into them. So we have people, because some of my colleagues have been with me for a long time. The CEO of Liquid Telecom, who raised $700 million for his company last week, he's been with me for 20 years. Okay? So I'm going to be writing a series on these sort of issues. When you come to grow your company and bringing people on board, the most important thing is to let them do their job. There's no point in having a glorified graduate that you then turn into a driver. So that you can tell your friends, you see, he has a degree from Dar, but you never give him any responsibility. Okay? I haven't seen a checkbook of any business I'm involved in for maybe 25 years. I don't know what a checkbook looks like. Why would I get involved with a checkbook? There are systems and processes. It's not about check who writes, who signs. They can rub you blind even if you're the one who signs. Okay? There are businesses that we have that I haven't even had the opportunity to even visit the country. Okay? You hire professionals, skilled professionals, you trust them, you respect them, you leave them to do their job.
Okay.
Hello.
Another question.
Yes, we actually have some questions online. So before we take more questions from the audience, I would like to engage and have a conversation with our online audience. I will ask 3 questions, and you will pick the winning question. Okay. So one question that came that has been asked a lot is, how do we scale to build bigger businesses, especially from informal sector, which is entrepreneurship? This question has been asked 10 times. Whoa. And another question is, what do you do when you seem to be the only one who believes in your dreams? And the third question, it's been asked more than 2 times. How is it possible to compete with the Chinese? We've said it.
Compete with the Chinese? We're going to beat them. But Look, the China story is a remarkable story. I go to China. I once disappeared in China for a whole month, just contacting, talking to people, trying to understand China. You have to understand China. They will be the world's biggest economy within a decade. Okay, that's inevitable. Even the Americans accept it. So, but at the same time, the greatest, most entrepreneurial country in the world is still the United States. Okay, it will be so for a long time. Respect that. You know, my pastor used to have a saying, eat the meat and throw away the bones. Okay, look for the good things. Don't be critical of China. Reach out, learn about them, study them, partner with them. Okay, some of the best partners I have are Chinese. But I also have American partners that I've done business with for 30 years that would do anything for me. So reach out to make partners, to understand what are the strengths of others. So we come back again to this thing of how do we scale? On Kwese TV, I bought a show which we paid a lot of money to get that show called The Prophet. Has anybody ever seen it? Yeah. And the guy there called Marcus Lemonis talks about the 3 Ps: people, product, and process. You got to have the people that don't come to work for a job. They come to work because they have a sense of purpose about what they're doing, that they believe in what they are doing, they support you. And they've got to be understanding that you're in a creative game and you are competing with others. You've got to also, obviously you've got to have a product you've got to sell to somebody that someone is willing to pay for. But where we fail the most on this continent is appreciation of process. What builds businesses is process. Building the systems, the structures that enable you to run a business where you may be in the supermarket business, but you don't have to visit everyone every day and check the money in the till. There are systems for that. Let me tell you, we have systems that from Johannesburg, if someone steals from us in a store in Burundi, we'll know about it before they do. I spent all my time building systems. Okay? So invest in systems and processes and go out and learn from others, asking the right questions about what is the system that makes it possible for you to be this big. It's not rocket science, let me tell you. So study processes and systems. And that's how we scale what we're doing.
Before we move from the online audience back to the room, another question that has come up a lot is, how do you balance business and spiritual life?
I'd rather not talk of it in terms of business and spiritual life. You know, let's talk in terms of business and the rest of, and your life. For a start, you and the business are 2 separate personas. You are not the business and the business is not you. I know this sounds difficult for some because you are so passionate and involved in your business. You know, a cousin of mine came to borrow some money. And, you know how it is with cousins. And he said, you know, cousin, I have an emergency. Can I have some money? I said, I don't have any money. He said, but I just read that you've got a lot of money. I said, no, you're wrong. You read that the company has a lot of money. Me, I have no money. Now, that's very profound. Separate yourself from the business. Let the business have its own persona. That's how big businesses grow. They are going to, so if you can't have your cousin walk in, need some money, and you take money from the till, and you give the cousin. It doesn't matter what the emergency is. The business is not you, and you are not the business. You build that into your consciousness, because the day you have partners, that's going to be extremely important. Because you'll end up with fights. When they say, but you took money, and how come you have a new car? Or, So you separate yourself from the business. The day you separate yourself from the business and allow it to have its own persona, you will have a life. So let the business have a life, and you go have a life. That means attend to your family, be in your family, do the things that, my kids didn't know I was in business until they were teenagers. Oh, yeah. Because I never allowed them to see me, the businessman. I go home as their father. I go home as their dad. I mean, one of my kids came up to me and says, Dad, one of my friends at school said this about you. I said, really? Oh, I said, that's interesting. Oh, how about your homework? Okay, you can't function as CEO and chairman in your marriage. Your wife can't relate to you as Mr. Chairman. Come on. You gotta get a life. Okay? So you separate. My wife and I don't discuss the business. We discuss orphans and the things we do in our foundation and so forth. And that's it. Because I want to have a life. You have to get a life. Don't overdo it. It's a long stretch. Okay? And go home, take your socks off, watch the television, go and watch the movie. My kids and I, they're home from school. We live in England. Every night we watch a movie. Oh, yeah. My 15-year-old says, okay, so what are we watching today? She says, Batman. Okay, well, fine, we watch Batman and whatever it is. You've got to do that. Because if you don't do that, you wake up one morning, your kids are gone, you don't know them, and you know what? No matter what happens, you're not taking it with you.
Thank you so much. That was profound. Okay. This side was offered 3 questions and they delivered 2. So we're going to finish 1 question to complete the set, and then I'll go this side and the other side. Okay.
My question almost vanished as I was waiting for the mic. Hi, good morning, good evening. My name is Evodius Ruta. I run a non-profit organization. We are involved in engaging young people into solving sustainable development challenges in environment, agriculture, and renewable energy. My question is, African markets are filled with substandard and poor quality goods, and most of them are coming from foreign markets. So I would like to know, what would it take to have trusted African goods and services or products that are built by Africans, for Africans, despite the challenges we have in our education sector, in health, in training our young people into building those products? What would be and what would it take to have those products that are built by Africans? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elisha Edson. I come from Iringa, Tanzania. I'm an entrepreneur, basically in agriculture. I wanted to ask on agriculture, but let me ask you a very fundamental question. One of the key things that made me to follow you and to make you one of my top idols is integrity. We all agree that integrity is key in business. But in Africa, you find that you have more opportunities to do otherwise. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So, Mr. MASIYIWA, would you help us as young entrepreneurs on how were you able to stand and to persevere all this persecution and always being faithful up to this moment? Thank you very much.
I'm not trying to look at the faces because some people knows me and they take advantage of it.
Thank you very much. My name is Jackson Oganga, and I'm a professionally teacher. So my question is, in your introduction, you talk about you went to the college and you did engineering, and you are now running telecommunication company. So to me, that is pretty close because telecommunication and engineering is kind of matching. So my question is, what do you think about the youth who sees the opportunity with the little background and the skills of what they see? Especially take a look about Africa. We have a challenge of technology and the science, but most of the youth don't have a background with technology stuffs. What do you think about that? Or should we only focus on the skills or the opportunities which match with our skills and the background? Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to take those three questions.
All right.
You talked about substandard products. It is going to be, it's a challenge of development that we will always face. What we need to begin with is to understand us as entrepreneurs. We have a responsibility like no other generation before us to act in a responsible manner. We have to ensure sustainability. We have to ensure safety. Whatever it is you do, it should not harm another person, should not harm the environment. The African ecosystem in particular is extraordinarily fragile. Now, our policymakers and regulators must also be vigilant to protecting people from substandard and dangerous products. This continent is filled with substandard products, not only in terms of what we consume, but tires, medicines, fake stuff that's flooding our market. And we as entrepreneurs play a big part in what comes into the market. So this is going to be a fight which requires three players, really, or four. The entrepreneurs themselves, which is what we're talking about here, the consumer, governments, and civil society. We need our social entrepreneurs to build tools, to build awareness about bad and substandard products, and to ensure that they're not coming into our country. And that's what the regulators, immigration, and our customs people must be looking at. But we must be constantly vigilant because, you know, there's corruption involved in what's brought in. And then my colleague was talking about my favorite subject, integrity. You know, there's a mystery to capital, which I want to share with you. Integrity is the greatest capital there is. It's the greatest capital there is. And once you get that into your system, because when people deal with you and they know that you are willing to walk away. For example, you cannot deal with American business today because of Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. If there's a whiff of corruption around you, it doesn't matter how much money you have, All these major countries are passing corruption laws. So just take integrity and say, you know what, I'm going to make this my currency. And you will be amazed what you can do with it. It's more important than having cash in the bank. And it will buy more than cash in the bank. That's just the way it is. Maybe we write a book together on it one day. You know, I couldn't really make out what the last questioner was trying to say. Maybe he'll find me later. Hey, let's have 2-3 questions from the ladies over here. Come on. And as for the guys on social media, I'll answer you off Facebook. I promise, if I don't get to you today.
I actually raised my hand on behalf of my husband, so I'm going to let him ask.
Thank you so much.
We are just going to put that off as a very good partnership.
That I have to mention her name. Her name is Faye. Okay. My name is Isaac Balonga. And you had mentioned in the talk that you're a spiritual person. Can you hear me?
Go on.
Okay, that you're a spiritual person and that you meditate a lot. Now, a few months back, there was a video that went viral concerning some of the aspect of poverty in Africa is because of the faith aspect or the religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, as opposed to the Western world where their faith is hard work. And that's why like the churches are going empty and so forth. And part of the poverty in Africa is because we believe in God, we pray, we trust and all that, but we don't do the hard work. Now my question is, number one, does faith in God or faith has anything to do with your success? And two, if that is the case, how do you balance between the aspect of faith and your business?
So the lady next to you was supporting the wife? Teamwork. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Brian Chua. I'm the founder and CEO Beacon Financials Limited. Right now we are dealing with business analytics, focusing on capital market. Now my question is about pitching. Your recent post on Facebook, especially in June, has been about pitching, and they are quite educative. I would like to know if you have any platform that business owners can pitch, and especially during this time when you are staying in Dar es Salaam. That's my question. And
opportunist. Makofi basi jamani.
Now, was that a good picture?
Okay, so final question for this side, and then we'll go the other side.
Thank you very much. My name is Salaam Robert, a medical personnel from Wimbili University. And my question goes this way. When you're about to start something, you have a lot of options, and I believe you also had those options in mind. But what did you really consider when starting telecommunication? Considering that maybe you had 3-4 choices in your mind, and you had all of those other people commenting and actually suggesting or giving you ideas about something, and you choose telecommunication over everything else. What do you really consider when starting an opportunity in business?
Okay, maybe we can answer those and then move to the other side, okay?
Pitching.
The favorite for, okay.
When I wrote the pitching post, our people, a group of my people were on their way to do a pitch to bond investors to raise one of the biggest bonds ever done by a private group. $700 million they had to raise. And they did 63 pitches in 10 days, 3 continents. And I wasn't there with them, and they brought home the money. Okay? So I want to give you practical experience, and that's what I put on that platform. Because I'll never write to you about some abstract idea I'm playing with. I might not tell you what I'm going to do or why I'm writing it at the particular time. But I'm in a unique position of having started, just like many of you. I was 26 years old at a time when it was considered just lunacy for a guy with a degree in something as then critical as engineering to say, I'm going into business. So I know what you are going through and the challenges that you face. So my hope is just here and there share with you just something from a practical perspective. But I also want to tell you that pitching, which is presenting your idea to an investor, will stay with you for the rest of your entrepreneurial life. I do it every single week. I have a conversation with an investor. I have a conversation with a partner. Okay? And so so get into it. Even if you're not doing it today, get into it. Because it's going to be part and parcel of what you have to do. Faith is a very personal thing. Okay, and when I've got to always be careful, because there are people who come from, I have my religion, there are others with their religions. Okay, and so often I prefer that, well, you know what is my own source for my fortitude and my strength in my challenges that I face. Let us leave it there. It is for everybody to consider it in their own way. Okay? But for the nature of the platform in which I am conversing across the whole continent of Africa on issues on which we can have common ground, irrespective of where we come from, what our background is. I hope we can all come together. But we can also respect what each other comes from. I'm very comfortable in my skin as a Christian. But I have extraordinary friends that are Muslims, that are Hindus, that come, extraordinary partners from all manner of religions and backgrounds and genders. And I respect them for that. Thank you.
Okay, is there a favor on this side now?
Hello, my name is Naima Sykes, and I am a communications manager at Gatsby Africa. My question to you is around timing. I think one of the continuing themes we've had tonight is when to act and not be left behind by the bandwagon. Now, I want to ask a question regarding the context and sort of environments in which I think everyone in this room is operating with regards to government and how the government policies and legislation don't move as fast as entrepreneurs do. And I want to ask sort of what's your experience when it comes to moving ahead of the curve so far in advance that the government is then catching up with your projects and your missions.
Okay. This side is okay, let's go at the back.
Hello. My name is Stuart Kitila. I'm the operations manager at Sparto Digital, and my key question goes to what is your view on the sustainability model for social entrepreneurship, especially on the African context? How do you see it as a very strong baseline of building businesses, because I'm afraid that we have been focusing too much on for-profit based entrepreneurship and forgot about the strength and the powerfulness of the social entrepreneurship. And if you could give a practical example, that would be really appreciated. Thank you.
Let's take the two. Timing is extremely important. But timing is resolved by one very simple issue: your preparation. It's all about your preparation. You got to be so prepared. So today, as young entrepreneurs, you may not be the guy who gets the opportunity to buy the oil block. Okay? And maybe you're not going to be too pleased about how it was bought and who bought it and where from. Okay? But you are part of the smart generation that are going to start enterprises based on the extraordinary skills that your generation holds. But you're also doing it in a global environment of extraordinary access to information. The information you Google in a matter of minutes used to take us 2 weeks to even begin to have a chance to see. So you've got all that at your fingertips. So you've got to be absolutely prepared. And this is why I personally counsel entrepreneurs from doing too many different things. I know you like farming, but you're also trying to get into real estate. And you want to do something else. And by the way, you'd like to run for member of parliament. Come on. Okay? Make up your mind. Okay? And do one thing and do it well. When you do one thing and you do it really well, you're always ahead of the curve. The deeper you are into something, the more likely you're going to be ahead of the curve. You see, I was saying to somebody, I can't learn about a new telecommunications idea from a newspaper. How can that be? By the time it's in the newspaper, I should have picked it up much earlier. A lot of times people call me and say, oh, some Nigerian guys were saying on Facebook the other day, what do you think of the problems of Etisalat that's been in the newspaper? I've known about the problems of Etisalat for 5 years. Okay, I'm in this game. Okay, you just move 1 inch and I know what's going on. Okay, because that's what I do for a living. That's what keeps you ahead of the curve. So whatever it is into you, you've dabbled in a couple of things, great. Choose one. Stay in it. Get deep in it. And sometimes sometimes you have a problem, you have a vision, and you need to do something that makes you a little bit of money to keep you going, my friend here was saying earlier on. Well, that's fine. But don't get distracted. Okay? Stay the course in what you are doing, because the more you are into it, the more prepared you're going to be. The more prepared you're going to be, the timing issue is always at your fingertips. The other question.
Karibu Dade.
Carry on.
Thank you. I have 2 questions and 1 request. My name is Priska Michael. I work with an NGO called Bridge for Change, which aim is to build a community of young entrepreneurs and change makers. As you talked about social entrepreneurship, and one of the greatest challenges that we've been facing is, and it's what I would like to ask, is how can a non-government organization work towards what you are talking about, scaling up and building big impact, but not in the sense of making profit, but in the sense of making impact. Number two, you talked about collaboration and entrepreneurs finding people to work together. How do you think is the most effective ways for young Africans to collaborate and work together without being scared about someone is going to steal my idea, someone is going to steal the spotlight for me? Those are my two questions. Then the third is a request. I would like for you to do a series on Facebook about how to use social media for impact, just like the way you've been using it. Thank you.
Sure.
No, because you're a lady, I would have cut you off, but I've given you the...
I want to come back to link the two questions on social entrepreneurship. Every entrepreneur, modern entrepreneur, should be also a social entrepreneur. Leveraging your business to find solutions for the needs of this continent. And it's not going to be always about profit. Some of the greatest ideas are not with people trying to do it for a profit. Our great challenge on this continent is how do we do these things that we need to do whilst weaning ourselves from dependence on aid and donors coming from outside. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody's got money and compassion and wants to come and work with us, they're most welcome and will always be welcome until we ourselves are able to take their place. But the urgency for us is how do we build our own social enterprises, NGOs, civil society, and it requires a partnership now with the entrepreneurs. We, the for-profit entrepreneurs, should always have in the back of our mind our friends on the not-for-profit side, how we can assist and help them with their side of the work. Because there are people, look, in our family foundation, we employ nearly 200 people. Professionals like any of you who are absolutely passionate about orphans, about widows, about the challenges of the poorest people that they find in their communities. And I always say to people, my partnership with my wife over our family foundation is very simple. I work for the money. I give, they come and they say, this is what we need, this is great. They make their pitch, because they too must learn to pitch. And I give them the money. So you too must be as ready to listen as entrepreneurs. Because let me tell you, you can have 10 cars parked outside. You're only ever going to be able to drive one at a time. But there is nothing that will beat sending somebody to school. That will change and transform our society. There's nothing that will beat helping the child, the girl child, go to school. You want to change society. That is why I take so much time on things like agriculture for women. I spend tomorrow I'm flying to Ivory Coast, not on business, to talk to the president of Ivory Coast about a conference we want to hold there on agriculture, small-scale agriculture. It's got nothing to do with my company, nothing to do with my business. It does cost, because it's your responsibility, and it doesn't start because you are big. I started looking after orphans when my business was so small. Well, I had 2 orphans. Then they were 3. And guess what? One day they were 40,000. As we grew, that grew. Okay? So look for things, each one of you. That's why I say get a life. and go and do all those things, partnering with social entrepreneurs, helping them to build sustainable models, which include helping them with how they make their things more sustainable, so that they're not writing letters all the time and worrying that Donald Trump is now president of the United States and he'll cut off money. Come on, guys. We're a $3 trillion economy. We'll get around it.
Thank you.
Now, we have 8 minutes left, so we have to finalize with this side. So this is your opportunity now.
There was a question on policy and regulation, and that is quite a challenge for a lot of young entrepreneurs. How do you navigate when policy and regulation is not for what you're trying to do?
Don't try and go to court. I spent 5 years. That's what it was about. I went to court to challenge the regulations. Boy, it was tough. But you know, you also must learn to lobby for change. It's part of business. It's not just an issue of being able to technically run your business. As entrepreneurs, you work individually, collectively, to push for change. It is not that the regulators want to be evil or the policymakers are selfish or even corrupt. It's not always the issue. But sometimes just allow for the fact that they just don't understand. And a little effort on your part, lobbying them to bring about the change, to understand the change, may get you there. Let me tell you, if you go to Washington, half the offices are taken up by people who are there to lobby for very big companies, small companies. So it's part of business. You have to learn to lobby your governments, your policymakers, work together, push for change. That is part of the democratic process, and you are in a very democratic country. So get those skills and get to it.
Thank you so much, Mr. MASIYIWA. So the 5 minutes remained for this side. We're going to pick 3 questions again.
Thank you. My name is Pius. I'm in civil engineering. We support the passive infrastructure for telecommunication companies.
Yeah.
Like towers.
And we do pay you.
Yeah, we do. Of course you do. Because we keep you going.
Now you see they're claiming it's a civil engineering miracle, this.
Now, my question relates to that. I'm not a civil engineer, but I'm in that industry. Now, I've been following you. A few days ago, you were in Nairobi and there was an agricultural forum. And you wrote, the next African billionaire will come from tech, innovation, and agriculture. But that was it. You've never spoken anything again about agriculture. A few days ago, again, in one of your afterthoughts, you said, if you have a business idea that has nothing to do with a mobile phone, you might think twice about it. Now, every time I follow you, I find out that if you're not doing anything to do with the tech and innovation, then you probably have a problem. I had to dump one of my business ideas. Now, can you, now we take you as our compass, can you please help us to, bring us to the other perspective that there can be so many other businesses apart from tech and telecom. That's one. I have one simple question, just one thing that I can go away with quickly. What is the first step someone should take to build a business system and process? That first difficult step, because it is easy to start a business. Buy here, sell there. Buy here, sell there. You can even sustain 10 years, even 100 years, but you will be a small trader. You will be a small trader. What does it take, and what is the first step to build a business process that lasts forever and ever? Thank you.
You know, this morning when I was at the mobile conference and I was speaking there, I had they gave me a similar platform, a fireside chat. And there was a young Kenyan, and he made a presentation on something called, I think they're called Twig Foods. Have you ever heard of it? Twig Foods. So these guys studied, they went to the markets to see how women in the informal sector, in the markets, buy and bring vegetables into the city. Smart young people, very smart. I'd invest in them any day. And they studied this, and they developed a platform so that those people don't spend 3 hours. They start at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to go out and buy these vegetables. Okay, and these people came up with a business model where these women order what they want. So many tomatoes, so much of this. And these young people deliver these produce to them. Let me tell you, the business they are building, they've become the biggest buyers of bananas, the biggest buyers of tomatoes. They are helping those women, okay, who are farmers. They're now buying directly from the farmers. So look at the trajectory here. Okay, there's technology at the heart of it, because technology today is at the heart of everything. We've got farmers who need to find out in Kenya. I visited in Kisumu how farmers there's a system they are using to find out the prices. So if somebody pitches up trying to buy your grain or your goat, and they say, you know, I'll give you so many shillings for it, how do you know whether that's a good price? Guess what? They are using mobile phones to share information. How much did somebody pay for a pig this morning? How much did and these are young people that are using their technical skills to create efficiency and to create business models that are extremely helpful to farmers. We're going to have to build more, and technology will integrate into our farming methods to improve productivity, to improve profits of small-scale farmers. And this is what I was calling young people to do. Because I'll tell you where the challenge is. 70% of the food we eat on this continent is produced by women farmers, smallholder farmers. They hold no rights. They can't borrow money. They have no title to land. These are needs which this generation must solve. And we are not going to, and the other problem is this. 80% of our farmers are already over 60 because the kids don't want to farm with a hoe, okay? So how are we going to solve the problem? This is a dichotomy. Our continent's population is increasing. We need more food. The young people, they're too smart. I'm not going to break my back with a hoe. Okay? So we need to make agriculture attractive to that next generation. And sometimes it's about giving them that, the technology is luring them to say, come to the city. That's where it's all happening. But if we can begin to think about how technology integrates in. The mobile phone today is just a tool. It is no different from the hoe. Okay, but it's a modern tool. But it's not a panacea for everything. Okay, we have to find solutions that create efficiencies and make it more prosperous to farm. Because we are feeding more people, but our farmers are not making more money. They are still scrapping a living, and most of them are related to us, because we are first generation to the rural people. We may be in the city here, but at the weekend we've got relatives, we've got friends, do we not? And our parents are in the rural areas. So we have to find ways to make those areas more prosperous. And it's one of our needs. And I thank you so much for raising it as an issue.
Irene, over to you now, because our 8 minutes are over. So for the final remark, before I welcome the CEO of Raha and the general manager for TV1. So just a final conclusion, and then we'll have a final close.
Okay. Well, this has been quite thrilling. Thank you so much for answering very important questions. And we are all inspired, aren't we? Let's... There are so many takeouts from this discussion. I don't even know what to focus on. I mean, from having the right mindset to, persevering, to focusing on an area and becoming an expert at it, to being open to partnerships and collaboration, to being bold and being visionary, to seeing opportunities, to being good at home, being good fathers, good mothers, good partnerships, because you need that base. I don't even know what to focus on, but I'm sure we've all taken out a lot. And one important thing that I want to highlight, just you being here in our country, on this platform, in this room with all of us, says a lot about the sort of commitment you have for this country. And I hope it inspires other business leaders from our country to across Africa to give back in this way, because what the youth need is not necessarily money, but it's just a direction, that guidance, that push and nudge to tell you that, yes, you're on the right track, or this is what I went through and you don't have to go through the same track. And the power of mentorship is beyond any money anyone can give you. Isn't that so? So we really thank you, Mr. MASIYIWA.
Let me also thank you. I appreciate you all coming. And, when you comment, you also mentor to me. Much of what I write is triggered by reading your comments. Don't be silent. I may not specifically answer you, but it usually triggers something. I go off and I start thinking about it, and I say, this one needs a much deeper thought about what we are doing in this space. We're in a long game here, but this continent is changing, and you are at the forefront of that change. And for me, being in Tanzania, which played such a critical part in the liberation of the African continent, this was the mother base of the liberation of the African continent. When I was the age, much younger than many of you that are in this room, that's how we knew Tanzania. So let us start a new liberation. The liberation of our continent economically. Our economic liberation starts with us. It's not with our fathers. They did their bit. Whether you think they did it well or bad, whatever, that's now for the history books. But we are accountable for the economic liberation of this continent. And we must do it, because if not us, then who's going to do it? Thank you very much and good night. God bless.
Kofi zaidi tafadhali. Kama unaweza tukasimama. Let's arise and give that the biggest round of applause to our speakers. Makofi hayatoshi jamani.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before you go, sir, we have talked about technology and digital, and We have all this great
Uh-huh.
audience. It will not be fair if we do not take a selfie. So we'll stand right here.
Because we're going to have them in the selfie.
We have to have them.
Yeah.
And I've been practicing for the last 2 days.
Okay.
So I just found out that when you want to take a great selfie, so here, I'm putting my camera on. So first of all, let's find out the light. Okay? Where's the light? It's about the light.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes, we have good light. And then we have to tilt the camera a little bit so that we get good profiles.
Okay.
So
And also, you have to add your partner in the selfie.
So here I am, tilting the camera. And we're going to move around so that we get most of the crowd. Smile. Do you know you have a good side? This is my good side.
All right.
Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. I need more practice. Just one last selfie. My country will not understand. Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
God bless you guys.
Thank you.
Makofi tafadhali. Asante sana. That's why Irene, you may be seated, please. Thank you. That's why Irene, she handles PR issues. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to wind up, and it will be very important that we hear a closing remarks from our event organizers and sponsors. And to start with, allow me now to welcome Ashik Sharif, who is the CEO of Raha. Karibu sana, Raha Company. Mpigeni tena makofi wakati anakuja juu jamani.
You're making me come up here for 30 seconds. Anyway, thank you so much all for turning up. Thank you, Mr. MASIYIWA. Thank you, Irene. Thank you to my team at Raha, team at Kwese, and the entourage at Mr. MASIYIWA's office for arranging this beautiful event. I think it was much needed. I won't speak much because after Mr. MASIYIWA's session, I don't think you're interested in hearing me. All I'll say is, what I take back from this is, let's not go out there to look for business, but let's go out there to look for needs. And more importantly, how do we fulfill those needs innovatively so that we liberate Africa? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Allow me now to welcome Mr. Joseph Sai, who is the General Manager for TV1. Makofi kwake tafadhali.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I won't speak much, but first thing, because I'm nervous, I'd like to start with appreciations. Thank you, Mr. MASIYIWA, for making the time, and your team. Thank you, Irene, our MC, the teams at Raha, teams at TV1. By the way, it's the first time we're working together. But some of you may know it was a few days notice, so I apologize for any defects that you may have observed. I wrote it down. Just one main takeaway for me. What are the current wars that the African youth is fighting? And do you see opportunities on that one? We've been given a hint tonight that there's a huge need to create jobs. And how do we innovatively do that? I am proud to say, I am nervous. I'm proud to say that I've got this hint from a person who walks the talk. Because you see Raha banners, you see Kwese banners, you don't see TV1. But the two brands are now, are a part of Econet Group. Watch these brands very carefully because there's a lot coming in this space. It's giving me a look not to say much, so I won't. Asanteni sana.
Asante. Naomba tumuongezee makofi tafadhali, Mr. Joseph. We also love to say thank you to Frank Josh from National Youth, from UNESCO, for also supporting us. Thank you so much, Amani Shayo from ISEC. Hongereni sana, you guys did a good part. Number to pigi makofi pia. Yeah. Without further ado, I would love to say thank you all for being very cooperative, and God bless you. Thank you so much, Mr. MASIYIWA. I will allow you now to leave the stage in escort with Irene. Naomba tuwapige makofi tafadhali na tusimame. Tuongeze makofi tafadhali ya shangwe.